In this video, we are going to be covering what's going on in the NFT markets, as well as giving you my best lessons learned during my trip to Japan for the RTFKT event. The first thing you got to know is over the past few days, I've actually been in Tokyo for some of the RTFKT events. So the three events I went to during those couple of days was the Clone X meetup, the Geisai event with RTFKT, which showcased some of their sneakers and things like that, which we'll talk about, and then the after party in Shinjuku. So let's go ahead and get into it. So the first event I went to was the Clone X Tokyo event, which is pretty cool. It was more like a private event for Clone X holders, and it really just meeting people in the community. And what I've learned is that a lot of people actually flew out from different countries, whether it was America or in Europe or in Asia, and they came to Tokyo for this particular event or the series of events, which is actually powerful because if you're getting someone to buy a ticket to fly to another country and stay in another country for a few days, then obviously there's a lot of staying power or cultural power over there, right? I've actually had a Clone X for quite a while, but I never got like super deep into the community. What I've realized is that actually the community is pretty real. So by meeting all the people, I've learned that there are a lot of people who are actually very interested in AR, VR, and like 3D specifically. And I think RTFKT really attracts that kind of community. So they're way ahead of the game, especially when it comes to 3D NFTs. And then after that was the Geisai event, which was essentially like this art convention, which Takashi Murakami is involved with. It's all about like supporting artists, whether they are younger or older, just trying to get them more exposure. And then at that event, they actually had a couple of rooms where they kind of displayed the sneakers that you are able to forge if you'd have the NFTs to buy it, right? So going into it, you know, this is kind of like what it looked like. They put the sneakers in these glass cases. Honestly, when you're there in person, it actually is very impressive. If you really think about it, they're miles ahead of anybody else when it comes to creating physical product and displaying them in this particular way. So you can see like the Murakami sneakers over here is pretty nice. And then they really designed it. I talked to some of the co-founders of RTFKT and they said they hired this runway set designer to design this whole thing. So it was actually pretty next level. And of course they had some teasers for Animus, some interactive like 3D things that you can play around with and it will like copy you and stuff like that. Pretty impressed with the overall event and display there. And the other thing was that there was this opportunity to do this free mint if you attended the event. And then it's kind of like you get a chance to win different levels. I believe it was like silver, gold, and crystal. So I was fortunate enough to win the crystal one. So on Opensea, you can actually purchase it. So I'm not exactly sure what these ones are. So like the silver one, gold one, and crystal. I think it's not very clear. And then this one over here, which is the pill, which allows you to add Murakami traits onto your Clone X. So that one's kind of interesting. So yeah, so you actually had to be at the event in order to win these things. And of course you could buy it on the secondary and things like that. There was an after party in Shinjuku in one of this building that recently just opened up like 2 weeks ago, I believe. So it was kind of like they rented out one of the floors there and had this party, free food, free drinks. I mean, it was really great to meet a lot of people in part of the Clone X communities. I could definitely say that actually the Clone X community is pretty cool. And I think presence wise, maybe it's not as big as maybe other louder communities on Twitter, but then the community is really real. And there are actually a lot of interesting people part of it. So if you're into Clone X and those kind of things, like especially like 3D anime, like these kind of things. And I actually get a chance to meet Takashi Murakami over here. He was just hanging out, dancing on the dance floor. Overall, it was a great experience in Japan, and I appreciate everyone that showed me around and was lucky enough to meet a lot of interesting people there. One really interesting that I've learned is that in Japan, Japanese people really love supporting Japanese projects. And, you know, because Murakami is involved in RTFKT, it's considered Japanese in a sense, right? And I think for Japan in particular, Clone X definitely has a very strong presence. I can understand why they did the event in Japan because they're really just trying to build that strong presence there, where other NFT projects, we don't have to name them, are having, you know, difficulty penetrating the Japanese market because they're not really Japanese, right? That was an interesting thing I've learned over the past couple of days. Now moving on, we're going to talk about Nike Swoosh. So Swoosh, just to give you a reminder, is basically Nike's platform where they're going to be selling NFTs, digital collectibles. And so they have this new one where they're going to have this like generative iterative collection of these Air Force Ones. They're saying that when you buy it, basically this is going to have different traits, like different bases, different colors. They're basically selling digital collectibles as shoes, right? So they're not going to be super expensive. I believe it was going to be something like $20 for each NFT. But if you think about it, for Nike to create that, it's really not that hard because they already like kind of do this. The way I look at it is, you know, when you go on Nike's website, there's already ways to customize your shoe and get a physical product. So they already can like forge it in a Web 2 way. They're kind of just taking the same concept, putting it into NFTs and selling a digital collectible that you can do the same thing with, except this is going to be generative. I'm sure in the future, you're going to be able to design your own shoes and things like that. So yeah, the competition is heating up. Nike's getting to NFTs and they're going to probably sell, right? And overall, when I think about like RTFKT and Nike and everything they're doing, I definitely can see Nike taking the lead when it comes to 3D and digital fashion. So maybe like, you know, the 6 months outlook, who knows what it's going to be. But then when we're talking about like 5-10 years, possibly they're going to be dominating this entire space, because like nobody even comes close to the level of presentation that they have when it comes to these digital assets, in my personal opinion right now. Of course, things can change, but I can definitely understand why Nike acquired RTFKT, because you're acquiring that talent and using that talent and putting it into .swoosh. And of course, LeBron James is rocking one of the RTFKT sneakers over here. So, you know, the moment they want to do this whole marketing push and sell digital collectibles, I think they're in the perfect position to do that. Now, enough about Nike and RTFKT. Let's go and talk about some new upcoming NFTs. The first one we're going to cover is going to be Goblintown Season 2. They're doing this new project called Big Ink. So I guess they're trying to expand outside of just goblins. I mean, you have to apply in order to get this. So basically, they're going to score you based on how good you are at trading. They're going to give it free for the top 1,000 worst crypto traders. The price is going to be 0.096 ETH. But if you pay in Pepe, you're going to get a 50% discount. So that's quite interesting. I wonder if there's like a back end deal where Truth Labs, which is, you know, the creator of Goblintown, is getting paid somehow in Pepe, or like, you know, there's some kind of deal, or maybe they're just using it as marketing to get that volume into the project. I mean, there's obviously some financial incentive. We just don't know exactly what it is, right? So yeah, you know, I'm curious to know if people are going to be excited for this, because so far for Truth Labs, it's kind of like they're just creating a lot of NFT projects, but it's kind of unclear of like what the whole purpose is. Are they just trying to create more and more digital collectibles and people can like buy them, gamble on them, and like trade? Is that the strategy here? I'm not really quite sure, right? But it is clear that they want to create more and more NFTs. If you're interested in Goblintown and you're interested in following the hype, check out this project. And real quick, one thing that they did was they're trying to create more demand for the other NFT projects that they had in the past. So if you have, you know, a combination of Goblintown and whatever NFTs they have, you can check this out yourself and look into the details. You're going to get certain free mints. So definitely check that out if you are interested in that. Now, the next story that we're going to talk about is going to be Blur. Now, this has been a very controversial one. People have been talking about it over the past few days. I want to just give you my simple way of understanding it and explaining it. And of course, I'm not like a DeFi expert, so I'm not going to get everything right, but just high level of how it affects NFTs, I can share that with you. When it comes to NFTs, the way I personally look at it from an outside perspective is Blur wants volume, right? They want as many people trading on their platform as possible. They want to take market share away from OpenSea and all the other competitors. How are you going to be able to do that? Well, you got to incentivize people to trade on your platform. And one way to do that is if people want to trade high value NFTs like Azukis, Punks, CloneX, you know, whatever the case is. Not a lot of people want to spend their ETH and liquidity buying these things in full. So they're going to take a loan out or leverage in order to buy these assets, even though they may not have the money to actually buy it, right? And of course, the technical details of how it works, like peer-to-peer lending and stuff like that, we're not going to get into that. Just know that if you're someone that wants to borrow money, you can basically buy an NFT on Blur, spend a little bit of money to get a full NFT, and then if you don't pay it back, and then there's all these mechanics of how it works, they can call the loan at any time, and you have to keep checking it like every 30 hours. But how does this affect the NFT market? Well, first of all, there's probably going to be more volume being traded around just because it's easier to buy blue chip NFTs and trade them. There's going to be a lot of beginners who are going to be like, oh, I'm going to try trading and I only have a couple ETH, so let me buy this and then try to trade. So a lot of beginners are going to get wrecked. They're just going to straight up lose their money because they don't know anything about trading, or maybe they're new and they're not exactly sure how the terms work and how high the interest rates are. And on the flip side, when somebody loses money, someone's going to make a lot of money, right? So from Blur's perspective, most likely they're going to be like, hey, you know, we're just a platform that facilitates, you know, buying and selling. You know, if people lose money, that's on them. People make money, that's also on them, which is fair to say. So it's going to be dangerous for a lot of beginners. That's 100% for sure. It's kind of like when centralized exchanges, when they allowed you to do like 50x leverage on trading like meme coins and small cap coins. Like 50x leverage is quite a lot, right? You know, especially like during big dumps, a lot of people just straight up got liquidated, lost all their money, and they just left the space, right? Pretty much, I just feel like Blur is taking the strategies that have worked in DeFi and just applying it into NFTs. And a lot of people who are into NFTs, if they already had deep experience in DeFi, you know, they can definitely take advantage of this new blend product and make money like they did in DeFi and repeat the cycle. And there's going to be a lot of beginners in NFTs that have no experience in DeFi. They've never seen this before, and they're going to try to do this and they're going to lose a lot of money, right? And so there's always going to be winners and losers. Is it necessarily good for the space? It's hard to say, because like you can argue that there's more volume onto a platform and things are more liquid, I suppose. But is that necessarily better for the space? Does that protect the average person? Does that help educate people from not losing money? Absolutely not, you know, but it does allow people to trade and buy and sell. So good is always relative. Depends on where you stand in all of this, right? It's good for people that make money. It's bad for people that lose money, but there's more volume. So there's more opportunity to win and lose. So I'm not going to say it's good or bad. I'm just going to say it is what it is. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about real quick is the verdict. Nate, this guy that used to work at Opensea, right? Basically, long story short, this guy working at Opensea, he had information on what's going to be featured on Opensea. So he would front run, meaning he would do inside trading based on the information he had, because he knew that certain NFTs would become popular when they're featured on OpenSea's front page, right? And so he would trade against that and make money. It wasn't even that much. I think it was just like 50K. Now he's convicted fraud and money laundering because of this insider trading. So it's the first public or big case where somebody got hit for insider trading for NFTs. You know, it sucks for him because he had to be the poster child for this, but it is good for the space overall because it will decentivize people from doing more insider trading, which probably happens a lot in crypto because there's not a lot of clarity and regulation on the law. So with that said, that's everything we got to cover for this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and I'm going to see you in the next one.